What's up, Ramblers? Your favorite CEO is back. And before we begin today's podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. And follow Assistance HQ and Offsource HQ across all platforms to stay up to date on the latest content, updates, and more. And remember, if you need a virtual assistant, visit us at offsource.tech. Now, before we begin, a word from our sponsor. Hey Tanisha, how are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of the Ramblings, guys. As I said, I have Tanisha with us. She's, I think, our first repeat guest. So congratulations, I think, on being our first repeat guest. I can't even remember at this point, but Tanisha has been doing a lot since, she's last been on the episode. And so she is a serial entrepreneur now, as I will classify it, mother of two, and teacher. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Tanisha, and talk about some of the things you have going on right now.
Well, I guess I like that word teacher, not technically a school teacher, but definitely empowered to teach the youth. Because I really think that they are the future of, everything that we're doing. I don't want to sound cliche and say the future of America, but literally the world and what that's going to look like. That's dictated by what we teach them, right? In our homes, in our communities, in our school. That's going to make a huge difference on what our futures look like, because one day they're going to be the ones that take over. They're going to be the ones who step into leadership. So I actually like that word, because what are we teaching them, right? When we teach, that's us being an example. So what kind of example are we setting? So I've never thought of myself in that way, but now that you said it, I like it.
Well, the reason, as if you guys don't know, I'm classifying Tanisha as a teacher because she is currently working on a program to teach young kids financial literacy so that they are able to, one, help show their parents, they're able to know like real world skills, the ones that the schools don't teach you. So that's why I classify her as a teacher. Could you expound on that a little bit more? What is with this? Why did you choose kids, and why are you trying to get it into schools instead of it being like maybe like a homeschool thing or like an ebook? Like, why are you trying to do like the school route?
So I feel like if you want to impact a community, you impact the school, because the children of that school make up that community. And so I decided at the beginning of the year, and this has been something that's been on my heart for a while, and after what I've seen with 2020 and the chaos, because 2020, all it did was magnify everything that was already going wrong. So what do I mean by that? Like, people weren't necessarily saving the way they needed to. And so you either didn't have a savings and that went down the drain. 401ks, things like that. People lost a lot of money in the stock market, in whatever the case may be. Job security, for a lot of people, that went out the window. So what happens when you lose your job? How do you continue to pay your bills and support your family? I think that was a big magnifier for us in the past few years. And so the idea is that if we're ready, when chaos happens, people want peace. That's really what it comes down to. People just want peace. But how do you get that peace? How do you even get to that space, right? And so for me, when I started this workshop, it really was about teaching kids basic principles of finance, self-development, and leadership skills. Because I feel like those are the three main things that you need to really succeed in this world, period, right? Especially if you're an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? And you learn the hard way as an entrepreneur. Like, entrepreneurship is naturally a self-development process. People feel like, oh, when I make it, I'll become. People don't realize it's the becoming that get you to where you're going to make it to.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I want to touch on a couple of things that we were talking about this morning, because that's like a great segue into what we were talking about this morning. So earlier this morning when we were having a meeting, we were talking about like the effects that money can have on a home and how that affects the youth, and how that the youth, then it affects you as an adult and everything. So like, talk about how like that money mindset as a kid really does affect you when you get older. Like I said, like I'm not a hug cash register kind of person, but I would consider myself being pretty okay with being cheap because my dad was cheap, regardless of how much money I make, regardless of, how, well off things might be. I'm still almost at heart Mr. Krabs.
Frugal. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I encourage it. Listen, because things happen, right? So yeah, so we were talking, a lot of times when we sit down with people, sometimes there's this sense of I'm good. And so, I sat down with someone and I asked them, I said, they told me I'm good. And I said, all right, well, do you have a mortgage? Yeah. Do you have a car note? Yeah. Do you have student loans? Yeah. Do you have credit card bills? Yeah. So how are you good? And then I
Right.
asked them, I said, they have 3 kids. So do you want to make sure that they're set for college? Yeah. Awesome. So if they're going to watch what you do, if you want to make sure that they're set up, because then the next year of questions I asked were, well, do you want them to have student loans like you? No. Do you want them to have a mortgage like you? No. Do you want them to have a car note and credit card debt and all those things like you? No. Awesome. So what kind of magical intervention is going to happen to set that next generation up to win? Because at
Right.
the end of the day, whether we like it or not, our children are going to copy what we do. And that's not just with money, that's with everything. But
Mhm.
specifically with money, I feel like sometimes as parents, we don't think our children see and notice things. They see and notice everything.
Everything.
Everything. And so if we don't want having a mortgage, having the car notes, dying in credit card debt, literally, to be the norm, then the only way for our children to learn that is for them to watch us do those things. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
if our children are watching us normalize having a mortgage, what are they going to do? They're going to go off and have a mortgage too. If we normalize having student loans, guess what? They're going to have student loans too. You know what I mean? It's up to us to make the decision to say, you know what? Yes, I'm in this situation. And I think it's actually more powerful for our children to watch us come out of those situations, because if they watch us come out of it, they'll never go into it.
Right.
And then when we get to that place where it's no longer normal, now their relationship with money changes. But their relationship with money isn't going to change if we don't change our relationship with money.
I
And
do
so
agree
if we
with
want
that.
to set the next generation up to win, because let's be honest, most people live at home with their parents. And I don't say that in a judgmental way, but the reality is that's what's happening with this generation, because we're buried under student loans, which practically are mortgages now. So then how can you
Yes.
ever buy a home? Like, in order to buy a home at this point, like especially our generation, it's like having 2 mortgages. So
Basically,
if we want
essentially.
to set the next generation up to win, well, then why not set them up so we can eliminate those debts and have them be in a position where they don't even have those debts to begin with? But we have to choose that.
Right.
And that can only happen if we change our relationship with money.
I agree with that. I think that there's been a lack of I don't want to say sacrifice in like a very negative way, because sacrifice is always deemed in a negative manner, but in spirit of everything being positive, the people that came before us made a bunch of sacrifices. They made sacrifices for us, and they didn't know us. It wasn't even for, sacrificing for just their kids. It was for their kids and for their neighbors' kids and for some random other person in the community's kids in the future, that, it takes the collective of us. And so I think that we, being for ourselves, are doing things for ourselves to the point where it's even, I don't want to say that it's hurting the kids, but it's really negatively impacting the trajectory of where they could end up. We're not saying that things are so terrible, but we're saying that, they could definitely be a lot better. And I think that, what you're doing is going to bring that. But we also talked about, for the parents that aren't necessarily, even trying to hear that, I'll say they're not even trying to hear that mess.
Right.
Their kids, if you're teaching their kids in school and learning and everything like that, what kind of, I don't want to say it creates necessarily cognitive dissonance, but I think it can create some kind of turmoil within the family, where the kids are like of age where they're like, oh, I see that this is an issue or this is an issue, because at some point as kids, we're like, when I have kids, I'm not going to do what my parents did like this, or I'm not going to do like my parents did like this. And we start that at a very young age. And I think parents forget that, we think like that, like, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. And so how does them learning like the program, learning about financial management and all this stuff at an early age affect how their relationship continues with their parents?
Right. And so this is why the self-development and leadership skills are so key. because, so for example, I'll talk about me, I watched my dad work a lot to make sure we didn't have to pay for college, right? And to this day, I can't tell you where he put the money, who helped him, but he lost all of it in 2008 when the market crashed. And so when we had to take out student loans, my brother and I remember seeing how frustrated he was about it, because he was like, I had the money, I saved it. I can't believe you guys have to do that. Right.
Right.
But who was going to knock on my parents' door, sit across their kitchen table and teach them about money? But then what happens is that generation, they get so much older, and this isn't, again, it's not a judgment, but they're like, you know what? I've gotten everything I've needed. I've done well thus far. I'm good. I don't need anything, which is fine. But then this next generation of kids, the hope is, okay, well, even if your parents choose not to make alternate decisions when it comes to finance, at least you have those skills, right? They're going to have eventually learn it from somewhere. And why not put them in a position to win before they go out into the real world, right? Because guess what? As soon as they graduate from high school, they go to college, the credit card lenders are waiting for them,
They
and they
are.
have no idea. They're just like, oh, cool, great credit card. And am I saying don't get a credit card? No, I'm not saying that at all, because eventually you do need to build credit and things like that. But to understand what you're really walking into when you do that. You know what I mean? I remember having my first credit card and having no idea. All I was like, this is awesome. I got $600 to spend on whatever I want.
Listen,
okay, fine, I'll have to pay it back. But it doesn't really sit in with you. You don't think about interest. You don't think about, and the next thing you know, you're like, I spent 200. Why am I paying back 4? Like, how did it get to that point? So just to give them that, and then saving, right? Okay, I get a paycheck. How different would my life have been if I was like, you know what, let me take half, 20, 30. If you're at home, maybe even more. Let me start putting that into savings, because it's about the habit, right?
Yes,
a lot of people
yes.
think I can't save until I make X amount. No, if you can't save at least $10 a month, then even when you do make more money, you still won't be able to save. And you hear this
That's
all
what
the
I say
time.
all the time. I say that all the
You
time.
hear
I
this all
say
the
it's
time.
the proportions. If you're spending all of your money now, you're going to be spending all because you'll find the ways, because you'll need a new car. Because if part of your spending is you have a car note, if you have more money, you can have a nicer car. And I'm sure that you probably want a nicer car. So you don't have that restraint to say, you know what, no, I don't need a nicer car right now, because this car still gets me from point A to point B. It's because, oh, you're in a nicer job, so you want to fit in and conform with everyone because everyone else has a nice car. I saw it on Facebook. It was like a competition of who can spend the most money, and that's not something I want to be part of.
Right, it's not. But it's about the discipline. And then so this is why the self-development and leadership skills are important, because we don't want to be in a position where we're causing these kids to judge anybody either, especially their parents, right? We don't want to cause that, but to also understand and have empathy, not just for their parents, but the world around them, and how to take in the world around them, right? Because a lot of times, the way we parent, the way we interact with somebody else, or whatever the case may be, that's based on how we grew up, right? We have these limiting beliefs. I know so many people who are like, man, I just want to do this, but I don't know, I'm scared, I'm fearful, whatever, holding me back. Or, you see how someone will interact with, maybe how women will interact with men in her life, or how men will interact with women in their life. All of those things have to do with the way that they grow up. But I don't want to erase the gratitude from kids, right? And they're going to apply this not just to their parents, but to everything in their lives, right? Because when you wake up with gratitude every day, right, like life is 10 times better.
So much better.
And then in helping these kids form their ways of being, that's naturally going to seep into the home, even if there was a parent who was resistant. But I don't believe that most parents would want to be resistant anyway. I think people do want to do quote unquote better, right? And I'm not even a fan of really the word better. It's just something that actually leads them to where they want to go. They just don't know where to go to do that. I think the word
better should work. I think better is a term that is pretty workable, because at least for me, my parents taught me that it's my job to prepare you to be better than me in what I'm doing. And I think that a lot of parents say, this, like, I don't want to say that they're the best, but it's not saying that it's like you can't do better than me. Like, this is the bar. Your job is to, I guess, reach here. It's not to surpass it, it's to get to here. And so, parents could only teach what they know. And I think that when parents are teaching, it's very important to get the things that you don't know, because not everyone knows everything. And I think it does take a village to raise a child.
Absolutely. And that's dissipated in our society. It's every home almost like for themselves. It's not the village anymore. But what if we change that? What if the village was raising the child? How many children would be off the street and out of trouble?
Exactly.
Right? What if the village did raise a child and we actually started connecting as a people again?
So many
Right? Because it
times
used to
my
be like
mom,
that.
yeah,
It used
I
to be
grew
like
up
that.
where I could walk or do something, and then someone would say, my mom, when I get home, my mom would say, so and so saw you and did this. And I was like, what do you mean? No, you said you were here, but so and so, one of my friends saw you over here, and they let them know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she has eyes everywhere. No, it's that community.
Right. Right. But if we're all in our own homes, just paying attention to only ourselves, how can we do that? So for me, the program is not just about influencing our children. It's about influencing the children and their homes. And when you influence the homes, you influence a community. When you influence a community, you can influence an entire state. When you state by state, now you get to influence the world. But that just starts with one person at a time. You know what I mean? So yes, we want to give them the tools to set them up to win, but we also want to give tools to set up the entire family to win. Because yes, we want to set the next generation up. You're like, yes, I want you to have better than I did. I want your life to be better than mine. I want to set, but if you're not being the example for your child, how are they going to figure that out? They're going to have to figure it out the hard way. And if that's what you want, I mean, that's cool, but I don't think any parent wants that. I think they want to be able to be that example, but then there's I want to be that example, but you also get to be open about that, you
Right.
know, and see where that can fit into your household, because when I'm growing, when I'm becoming who I'm meant to be, it's not just for me, right?
Right.
It changes the way I interact with my children. It changes the way I interact with my husband, my family, my friends. All of that changes. And so if my child is watching me be that way, right, they're going to emulate that subconsciously and consciously eventually as they get older. But it also goes against us, right? Like if you're in a home and a child is considered to be seen, not heard, and the parent is always blah 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 blah, and it's not malicious. We think we're disciplining, and it might not necessarily always come out that way. And then you see this kid who gets bullied in school, right? So they're being bullied, and you're like, well, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But you're telling your kid at home to be seen and not heard. And I think sometimes the misconception is that that's not going to translate into the world outside, because what you do inside the home, that environment, it will translate to the outside world.
It does.
But I think that because we're not 100% aware of that, and I'm guilty of it too, and I have little ones, and still I've been able to see the change, right? Like the way I used to be as a mom as opposed to now, because I'm becoming more conscious of that. I see the difference, the way I interact with my children now and the way I used to. But again, like that's something that we have to be open to, and you have to want to be in that position. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just allow the ego down for a second, just a second, and come from love and not take it as a judgment. You know what I mean? As I'm not a good enough parent, sister, brother, family, friend. There's nothing wrong with the way you are at this moment. You're perfectly okay. But in becoming, all of the things that are happening in 2020, it is just a reflection of who we've become as a society. And if we don't want those things to happen, then we all get to take responsibility, 100% responsibility in ourselves, and become the best version of ourselves. Because when we do that and we don't cut the corners, then society changes. Because a lot of us are waiting for society to like do something to us. I don't know. Like we're waiting for society to we're waiting for society to change. And it's like when society changes, we change. No, we get to change. And naturally society will change. It's almost like we're doing it backwards.
Right. I definitely think we're doing a lot. That's a different conversation because I
You're
think we
right.
do so many different things backwards. But speaking about it coming from love, and I definitely agree that that's where the place, it should come from love and empathy. What are some of the topics that you hit on in your program that you have coming out? Like what are like give us like some little bit of something. Like what do you have, like what are you putting in there, like what are some of the things that you're focusing on? So you talked about like your three main priorities and everything, but what are some of like the subdivisions that you're trying to tackle on? Like give us something, give us like maybe like a
Like a little
hint.
snippet, yeah.
Yeah, let's snippet.
So I feel like when with the financial component,
Mhm.
simply it's knowing the rules of the game. When you understand the rules of money and the game that the money flows within, when you understand the rules, then you could do whatever you want. But most people struggle because they don't know the rules. You can't really play a game fairly, right? If you don't know the ins and outs, the ups and downs. So we want to make sure that we equip them with all of the rules that they need to go out so they can play that game of life and win, right?
What
Not
are
learn
some
the
of those
hard way.
rules?
So basic things like the rule of 72, right? How
Mhm.
interest can work for you or against you. How to save, creating those habits, as I mentioned before, having that emergency fund,
Right.
having an emergency, but an emergency fund, a fun bucket, a wealth bucket. What does
Yeah, I
that look
agree.
like? Right? Like, why do I have to wait till I'm 45 to start thinking about retirement? Why can't I start planning that? I wish that I had the mindset to plan for retirement at 18. And I know that might sound a little crazy, but if you
You're
want to
going to
live the
retire at
life you
some
want to
point.
live, right? Because how
Mhm.
many people do we see that are retired working in Walmart? I'm highly sure that's not a choice. That's a I have to pay my bills,
Right.
right? And then when it comes to self-development, giving kids the tools that they need to process the world, right? We have a lot of kids who we deem as angry and bullies and all these negative things, but what we're not realizing is they're internally processing something and they're struggling with that internal process.
Right.
And so they create all these limiting beliefs for themselves subconsciously. And we do this as adults too. But we have to remember as kids, they have their hormones raging. They can't 100% control their emotions when they're super young. And all these things sink in. And so bringing awareness to that for them. And so if they're going through something in life, giving them the power to stand in complete responsibility for themselves and understanding that they have the power to control their emotions. And yeah, you can't control the people around you and you can't even control the environment around you, but you can control your internal environment and how that relates to the world.
Mm.
Because a lot of kids, they act out and they do the things that they do because they don't feel empowered. But what if they have the tools to feel empowered? And then so when things are happening, it doesn't affect them in this negative way. It's just something they notice, right?
That's
Imagine if
yeah.
the things that happen were just notice moments and you're like, I saw that, I learned from it, as opposed to, I saw that and I internalize it. And now it becomes this negative, heavy thing,
That
right?
would be
We
so
saw
much
that a
different.
lot, right? Can you imagine? We saw that a lot in 2020 because a lot happened. But think
Yeah.
about it. How many people were outraged? How many people like internalized that? And it sat heavy. I mean, I'm included, right? But what if we, instead of sitting heavy, stood in complete responsibility and was able to say, okay, well, this is what's happening. What action steps do we need to take so this doesn't happen again? Right?
Right.
So marching was awesome, but there's a next level to that. There's more to do than just that
I
in
agree.
order for society to change. Because as I said before, a lot of us are just waiting for
The
society
next
to do
thing to
something
happen.
to us, right? And then leadership skills. Everything rises and falls with leadership, right? So let's teach our children how to be leaders of themselves first, right? Because leadership always comes in three stages. You lead yourself, you can lead a group of people, and then you can lead a massive mess. But a lot of us skip that step because we don't understand what true leadership is.
Mm.
But
That's
what if
oh my
we
gosh.
but what if we taught them how to be leaders in their own right? I feel like one of the things that is missing in the school system when it comes to that is creating environments where children are able to bring out their natural gifts. Like in school, we just like pour information into them all day, but we don't take the time to reach in and grab out their natural gifts,
Right.
right? That's why there's so many of us on this planet. Like you have your natural gifts. I have my own natural gifts. They have their own. And then they just get suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. And then you see people like, well, I'd really love to be an artist, but I have to work this 9 to 5. But what if you learned how to be an artist and make money and live the life of your dreams? As opposed to someone saying, well, you'll never make money doing art. Well, why not? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But we don't create that.
I know what you mean in the sense of like, I don't want to say I feel like I was robbed of this, but in 2010, I was going like I was like eighth gradish, right? And so going into 2011, like I was graduating, but the 2010 to 2020 era, I always say has had one of the largest shifts, right? So in 2010, the big thing was because social media was like extremely popular, like everything was social media, like a new social media coming out. And the notion or like the whole campaign for people that were popular on social media, but did not have, let's just say, real world or a regular job kind of experience. They were the people that were working at Domino's or McDonald's or doing busting and everything like that. But they understood how social media was able to affect and how the tide could turn because they had attention, right? And so at the beginning, it was, we don't take Instagram models seriously, or we don't take Facebook comedians seriously, or, if you are someone who's popular on social media, that's not the real world. And here we are in 2020, in which Instagram models are getting sponsorships, they're making deals. Facebook comedians are having are going to do comedy shows, they're going to do tours, they're getting paid for sponsorships, all of these. So, Jake Paul just fought Mayweather or something like that.
Can you
And
imagine?
He's a YouTuber.
YouTuber.
He's never boxed before. Like he said, I want to go fight on the big ring. And if you guys want to watch me, like, let's do it. And because he has attention, that was able to happen. And someone like Floyd, he said the patches on his boxers gave him $30 million. Like $30 million he was paid just to have patches on his boxes. But all that comes from attention. And it's because we're telling people to not pursue their dreams. If you want to be a YouTuber, be a YouTuber. But I think we have to bring it to the point of reality. If you're going to be a YouTuber, are you okay with being a YouTuber if you only make $30,000 a year? If you made the money that you made at McDonald's, but at YouTube, would you still be a YouTuber? And I think that's where we have to bring that point, because if you're doing what you love and you're doing it for free and you're working like a busing job, or you're doing like driving, or you're doing like McDonald's, or you're doing like waiting and stuff like that, it can be very, the exact same if you do what you love. And I definitely think that we need to bring that more. And speaking of doing that, you have a fundraiser. I know that's a large switch, yes, but we have you're doing something, and that's for helping people. Tell everyone about this fundraiser that you have. It's on Sunday, you said. So what's going on?
So we're going to be it's going to be 2 days. We're going to do a health and wellness day on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And then on Sunday, we're going to have a whole bunch of events. We're going to have comedians and performers and all kinds of really cool things. And it's all geared towards fundraising for two main organizations. So one, No Kid Hungry. And the second one is the Torch program. And so what they do is they teach emotional intelligence, leadership skills. Their mission is to make sure that they can set kids up to win, everything that we were talking about before. Right. And so I'm so grateful to be able to partner up with them, because I remember in January, I said, you know what, I'm going to create this workshop. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to do it. And there's such power in declaration, and there's such power in what you put out in your words, for the universe, because the universe hears you and it'll give you back what you put out. And so to be able to partner up and work with this organization and be able to raise money. And so the beautiful thing is these workshops are free for kids.
Okay.
And the reason why it's able to be free is because of the fundraising. And so because I love what they do so much, we decided to come together and do a fundraiser. So that way we can be able to help them to continue that effort to make sure that children are put in an environment where they can win.
That's absolutely amazing. How much are you guys raising? Where can we find how to donate and everything?
Yeah, so I can definitely post the information. So we have a Zelle and a Venmo. And so our goal is to raise 10,000 by the end of the weekend, by Sunday. That's
Mhm.
our goal. We would love to raise more, but 10,000 is our goal. And we're hoping to be able to give all of that money to No Kid Hungry and the Torch program. So that way they can continue to do what they're doing for the
Wow.
future.
So
Yeah.
how did you get connected with the Torch program and the No Kid Hungry?
So funny enough, in January, I decided to put myself through a self-development program because I said, you know, I want this workshop to be the best it can. So I
Mhm.
can't really teach something that I don't know. So I put myself through one. And I'll actually be graduating in about a week and a half or so.
Oh,
And so
congrats.
thank you, thank you. And I literally walked in thinking, oh, you know, I'll learn some cool things for this workshop that I want to build. But for me, the change and the self-development in me, the self-awareness in me, I did not expect that to happen. I didn't. And it's funny because we were talking about this earlier, how still you think you make peace with things and you think, you know, whatever, and you don't realize how childhood traumas and the events that happen in the past, how much those things still seep into your life. You know,
Right.
how much you can repress something and things like that. And, you know, I'm 32. You know what I mean? So I've had decades and decades to be able to repress these things. But imagine, and this is again why I'm so passionate about it. If I had these tools when I was 17, 18, I can promise you, Angela, my life would have looked completely different. I would have seen the world in a completely different way. Now, don't get me wrong. I am very grateful that I've gone through everything I've gone through because that's what creates the passion in me to do this,
Mhm.
you know? Um, but I still understand that had I been given that opportunity, my life would have looked completely different. And so I'm really passionate about making sure we put children in those environments. And so in going through the program, I was able to network and make great connections with the Torch program. And, you know, we were able to work with No Kid Hungry to be able to give back because in becoming a leader of society, I think a big part of leadership is being a servant leader. You know, people have all different meanings of what leadership is,
Yes.
but real leadership, like servant leadership, that means you're working harder for the people than they work for you. But a
Yes, I
lot of
agree.
us have that backwards. A lot of us say, well, I'm the leader, so they work the hardest. No, servant leadership is about being in service to others, right? When we talk about Martin Luther King and major icons in society, we still hear about him to this day because he was a servant leader. He didn't do what he did for himself. He did it for the greater good of society. He did it because he wanted to be in service,
Mm. I
right?
think
You think
that's
about,
amazing.
right. And Gandhi, Mother Teresa, all of these major icons, they weren't rich. If you think about it, right?
Right.
People with major impact on society were not the richest. They just chose to be in service the most.
What's going on, Ramblers? I don't mean to interrupt today's podcast, but we have a quick mid roll from our sponsors.
That's so true. They insert servant leadership is a very key factor in being like an amazing and great leader because in order for you to lead, you have to have people to lead and people have to follow you. And I think the best way, the most effective and efficient way for people to follow you is for you to be in service to them, just like they feel it's all for one and one for all kind of deal.
Right.
And so I think that that definitely plays out well with the Torch program and the No Kid Hungry and the fundraising that you're doing. So you said that it was put on a tight crunch line and everything. We want to make sure that as many people have the
Yes.
ability to donate as possible. We're gonna try and get this everywhere. So is there a particular website or anything that they
So
can
I
go
will
to?
post my so there isn't, but there is as I mentioned before, there's the Zelle account and the Venmo account. I
Mhm.
can absolutely post that and give the information. So if people would love to donate, please, if you can, that'd be awesome. And I'll also put my contact information in there. So that way people can, if they have questions and they want to reach out, they can. And so those are pretty much the three main ways people can reach out if they need to.
No problem. That definitely works. So if you guys heard that, make sure you donate, because we want to make sure that the youth and that the next generation is absolutely doing better than what we're doing, because I don't think we're doing the greatest job. And so if they're going to copy us, it's up to us to make sure that we really do show other people, and especially the younger generation, why we care, how much we care, and really invest in them. That's what Off Source is all about. It's about investing in people.
And we'll provide the Zoom links as well for all of the events. So if you guys want to hop in the Zooms and then get in contact with me.
Is there an Eventbrite for the Zooms or anything?
We'll talk. So nope. So I'm going to post it. We're going to post the Zoom link. You just have to link in. Just come and join us. And then we'll have more information. Again, we'll post the Venmo and the Zelle. You guys could get to enjoy everything we're going to do for the weekend. Come join us. There'll be yoga. There's going to be a family fitness class. We're actually going to be doing a cooking with kids. Right? All virtual. All of it is virtual. Everything is friendly. Exactly. So for the next, we are going to be doing a walkathon in Freeport, but I know there's going to be people from all over. But even that, we're going to do that virtual as well. So you guys can come on and walk with us and help us raise money. And we're going to be doing a cooking class. It'll be like a family cooking class. So the kids can join in and feel included. And then on Sunday, as I said before, we're going to have comedians, performers, dancers, all kinds of things. So yeah, I'm going to post the Zoom link. You guys are free to join us, and you can get the Zoom link whether you donate or not. But we are hoping that when you join us, bring a friend, so that way we can raise as much as we can to be in service to the next generation.
We absolutely appreciate that so much. At least as someone, I think I would be classified as someone from the younger generation. I know I appreciate it. I know that the younger people at least should appreciate it. Now, as we had mentioned earlier, Tanisha is an amazing client of ours. We absolutely love working with her, and she has had a lot going on, and we have been able to help her with that. And I'm pretty excited for what she has going on. Now, I can't spill any of the beans, but why have you decided to work with a virtual assistant?
Oh my God, you guys have been phenomenal, to be honest with you. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now. So before I started working with Angelo, I'll admit I am not the most tech savvy person. That is not my strong suit. But here's the thing about leadership too. It's not that you have to know everything. You just have to know people who know what you need to know. So I do not know technology that much and things like that, but I can tell you my calendar, my schedule, I mean, all the background things that are happening. It has been such a weight off of my shoulders to be able to find someone who I can trust and say, hey, can you take care of these things for me behind the scenes? Hey, can you, and then to be able to count on that and actually get it done and make it happen for me, right? Because here's the truth. I'm one person. I can only do so much at once. But to be able to have a team of people who I can trust and say, hey, I can delegate these things, right? And Angela will tell you it was hard for me to delegate in the beginning, right? Like, because I was like, oh, I have to do it all. But you guys have completely made me feel comfortable with saying, well, I don't have to do it all. I have people I can trust to help me create all the things that I want to create, to impact the way I want to impact. And I absolutely cannot do that by myself. So I am in complete gratitude to you and your team. Because and I know we were talking about this earlier. I'm so excited that I get to work with you pretty much at the beginning of this journey, because you're seeing everything in its infancy stage. Like these were things that were on paper that I'm like, let's execute. And so it's really exciting to have you see it from the beginning, and then a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we can look back and be like, oh my God, do you remember when we started? It was like
speaking of, you have a lot. I didn't even mention this, because you said that we were working together, and it just made me think. You, as a serial entrepreneur, since we last have talked, have not only been doing this program, you have been doing this simultaneously while helping like 3, 4, 5 different friends start a business, like opening up a shop, looking for real estate. Like, I know that we talked a lot about that kind of like stuff, but like you're doing like I wouldn't say necessarily consulting work, I guess, but you're doing like a lot of helping other people get their business started too and everything.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to servant leadership, right? If I'm doing this by myself, that really means nothing.
Mm.
I'm one person. I cannot impact the world by myself. I can't even impact my community by myself. And anyone who even tries to say that, it's not true, right? Like, so for example, we can go back to Martin Luther King again. Like, yes, he's the icon we think about, but when did you ever see him alone?
You didn't. You don't.
Never. You never saw him alone because he wouldn't have been able to do it by himself. And so for me, I know that I'm young, but all the experience that I have, if I can share that with another person to help them grow, why not? You know what I mean? Why not? Because
Right.
I also believe in abundance. And so I know that, and I'm not doing it for this reason, but I also understand that if I put out as much love and support into the world, that when I need it, it'll come back tenfold.
I agree. Everything
And so
always
to
comes
not
back.
be so stingy and so, right? Like again, coming from love. If I'm able to do it, yes. Now, is it a little hectic? Absolutely. And sometimes I do have to say no to certain things. But when I do have the chance to say yes,
Mhm.
absolutely, I'm going to say yes,
Right.
you know? So, but again, I can only do all of that because I have you and your team helping me and making sure that things in the background are happening exactly as they should. So again, super grateful to you because I wouldn't be able to help all the people I'm helping and create all the things I'm creating without you guys. So thank you.
We definitely love the shout out and everything. What are some of the things that you have going on? Like, I am a supporter of everything, right? Of everything that you're doing. So what are some of the things that you have working on the side? So you have the program. What are some of the other businesses that you're getting started?
Oh, so in addition to that, we are starting a CBD shop. So I
Mm,
partnered up with my brother and his friend, his wife, and my husband and I. And so we started that. And it's funny because they've been talking about this for a while. And I know in New York, they've legalized marijuana, and soon they're going to legalize the sale of it. And I thought to myself, well, here's what triggered me a bit. They said, we're gonna legalize it, and then they were gonna create a program to help minorities who have been affected by going to prison
mhm.
because they were selling marijuana. And I said, awesome. Well, if you're going to give them money, that's not really going to help them that much. They need to understand how to be business owners. They need to understand how to work the industry and maneuver through that.
Right.
Throwing money and saying, hey, we're supporting you, that's not going to be enough support. Because the chances are most small businesses will fail, not because, they they fail because they didn't know.
Right. You don't know
And
what
so
you don't
for
know.
me, I heard them talking about it and I'm like, ooh, that's perfect timing. Let's do this. And so we're opening up a CBD store, but really because I want to get into the industry. So that way I can understand it. So that way, as the industry grows, I can teach other people how to maneuver through this industry, right? I can't really do that if I'm not doing it myself. We see a lot of people who, especially now with YouTube and
Yes. Oh my God.
they'll just like copy something that they hear someone else say and then all of a sudden they start creating their own content. But if you really research these people, they have nothing they've created to back up anything that they're saying. And so for me, just the authenticity of saying, well, who are you to even teach me that? Well, here's what I've built, and I'm going to make all the mistakes now so you don't have to.
Right.
Right. um because if we want to put people in a position to win, like somebody has to step out first. Like somebody has to
Right.
step out first. So I chose to step out first. So that way, when
Wow.
the time comes, I can teach people to build what they want so they can be free to live how they want. Right. So
Really diving into that servant leadership role, taking that very seriously to the heart right there.
honestly, truly, yes. So I grew up watching nonprofit. My mom and my godmother, and there's like a whole board of people, but I remember being a little girl and it was just like this one room with a large table and chairs, and it was just to help Haitian immigrants assimilate into New York. And now this organization, I mean, they help mothers who are pregnant, they help families who have children with mental illnesses and things like that. They are teaching people how to read English, basic skills. They have UPK I mean, it's endless what it's become, right? And so I understand that when you choose to be a servant leader, is it going to happen tomorrow? No, it takes time, but I don't think that it's an accident that I grew up that way. I think that that was an environment that I was put in by God because he wanted me to do this. And so because I'm so clear about my purpose and what I'm supposed to do on this planet, do I know exactly how it's all going to happen? No, you and I talk about that all the time. Like we're always refiguring, right?
Yeah,
Trying to figure stuff out,
pivoting.
changing our strategy, pivoting. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I have no doubt in my mind what I'm going to create.
Right.
But I'm not attached to what it looks like. I'm attached to my process because in my process, I can teach other people my process so they can go in.
That's the key right there. It's about the process. And me, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee, so we talk. So he talks about that. I almost said we. I don't talk to him. But yes, I absolutely agree. It's about the process. Like people very much ignore. Like they're like, okay, I'm trying to do X, Y, Z. When it's about how do you get to X, Y, Z? Because as long as you know that you want to get to XYZ, if you focus on, getting there, the process of getting there, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if you take a loss, if you get set back, if you get diverted, you always find your way back to, okay, how can I use this to get better at business? For example, my very first job was because my mom made me go to a McDonald's open interview. They were doing open interviews. I was like, I don't want to work at McDonald's. I'm not trying to do that. But she's like, you're going to start working. You need a job and you're start learning. You're going to go, they're doing openings, and very logical. She said, it's right around the corner. So if something happens, you can walk. Like that was her. She was like, it's around the corner. So if something happens, it's easy to walk. You got to think about things like that. When she had got my first car, it was big. She's like, if something happens and I got to kick you out, you got somewhere to live. I didn't just put you out like that. So I was like, oh my God, that's kind of harsh. But being at McDonald's, it gave you the opportunity to customer service. Like you can shine if you show customer service at McDonald's. Oh my gosh. And what people fail to realize, and I don't even think McDonald's realizes at this point, or at least the franchise owners, is that when you take yourself seriously and your job seriously, even if it's at a place like McDonald's, and the customers recognize that, they come to that. They go, hey, don't go to that McDonald's, up the street. You go to the one down and around the corner. And that's what we say. You say, oh, hey, I don't go to that bodega right there because that owner is they may not like Black people, or that they may just have crappy customer service. Or I went in and Poppy had the cat on this and I don't mess with that. So you go to the bodega across the street or something. And it's because of that experience, that feeling. And I think that it really needs to be ingrained in whatever happens, as long as you have your eyes on the prize and you focus on your process, anything that happens can be turned into a learning point.
Everything. And again, that's mindset, right? Because some people will say, oh, I failed. Oh my gosh, I'm done. No, you didn't fail. That was an opportunity to learn. Now you're going to try it again. You know what mistakes you made. So now you're not going to start from here. You're starting from here.
Right.
Because you learned. Cool, that didn't work. Awesome. Now you know what's not to do next time.
Exactly.
Go win. But
that's all we look for.
Like success is sensationalized now, especially with social media. You know what I mean? And so, and we were talking about this, and this is why I really want to really work on my social media now. I want people to see my growth from the beginning. I think a lot of times what happens is in social media, people start posting and they really, work on their content after they've made it. And so it makes it seem so far.
Right, yes.
Person watching, and then they're like, man, I want to be successful. So they're like, I have an idea. I want to start a business. I want to be successful yesterday. No, there was probably about 5 to 7 years of grunt work. And you didn't see a whole bunch of no's, a lot of disappointments. Who knows how many times they probably went broke, but that takes like internal wherewithal to be able to go through that. And a lot of people don't want to go through that. People just want to be successful. And again, that's never going to happen, because even if you did by some miraculous set of events become successful that quick, you're going to lose it that quick because you're not the person you are meant to be to handle that. Right. And I,
Right.
if you ever listen to people who are successful, they'll talk about this. My first business failed. Oh my God, I lost so much money. Da da da, whatever. And then they'll always back it up with, well, I wasn't humble enough. There were things that I was doing. I needed to learn this. Or
Right.
my relationship with the people who I worked with was like that. And then so they took it as a learning experience. Now this new business that they have is thriving 10 times better than what they had before because they understood that their ego was leading their success, not their natural, authentic spirit and way of being.
Right. You know how they say if you can't stand the heat, don't get out the kitchen? If you want to box, be prepared to get hit.
Right.
If you're gonna do anything, be prepared to take an L. If you're gonna do business, be prepared for it to fail. I think if because we think that about everything but business almost. It's
Right.
almost like, oh, it's okay if you fail in school or if you mess this up, but if you're doing a business, oh, you got to do X, Y, and Z. You can fail. People get fired from BS jobs. I'd consider that a fail, but you go get another one.
That's it. And a lot of people, and here's the difference. A lot of people will do that because they feel, well, I have no choice. I have to go get that other job because I have bills to pay. But sometimes, especially entrepreneurs who do have a job, and I suggest that, like, make sure you still have some sort of income, as you're building something, and then get
Right.
to a point where you can go all in. And, hey, if you're able to go all in, sometimes that is necessary, right? But if you do have a job and, you're still trying to build something, understand that there's going to be ups and downs, right? And treat it like you would a job. Sometimes
Yes, like
people
a
are like,
second
well,
job.
right, full-time mentality, the same way you're, full-time, right? Because some people, they become a business, oh, my time is mine. Yeah, no, it's not.
Oh, my time is mine. Oh, I move on my schedule. Oh,
No.
no, you're not. If you move on your schedule as a business owner, you have no business. There is
Right.
no if you were booked and busy, you don't really have a schedule. Now, unless it's like, oh, you're very, very good and you're going to charge a lot of money and take like three and build, but you still have to go out and get those people that are going to pay a lot, because I have seen so many people like get into arguments over, oh, why are you charging me this? Like, you didn't even give them the money yet, and you're arguing over why it costs that much. But yeah, I definitely think it's about the grind. So much
Yes.
about the grind. What helps you for your grind? Like, as of right now, you have a lot of things going on and everything. Like, what are some of the best like tips for your like enduring your grind and or doing well in your grind and whatever it is that you do? What are like some of the tips that you have?
I think it's truly being passionate. Like, find something you genuinely care about that fires you up. Because, when we talk about time, I struggle with time all the time because I have kids and things come up. And, so my schedule doesn't always look the way I want it to look. I struggle with that a lot, especially in juggling so many things. But I am super passionate about what I want to do, that I don't care how it's going to look, right? I'm
Right.
not attached to the result. I'm attached to what I want to build, right? I'm just really, and so I invite people to really sit down and think about that. Like, what fires you up? Because when you don't feel like waking up in the morning and you don't want to stay up that extra hour at night when you rather just go to bed, because we've all been there,
Yeah.
what's going to get you out of your bed and what's going to keep you up late at night, burning that midnight oil, is your passion.
I
And really
agree.
understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Right. And then I think a vision board too. Like, I created a vision board in December and it literally sits like right above my workstation. And so sometimes I just literally stare at it, everything that I want, and it's for the next 10 years. but I stare at it all the time. Like all the things that I want, the way I want my life to look. Is it going to be exactly that way? Who knows? I don't know. But it still inspires me to keep going. And who knows? I might do it before the 10 years are up. I might do it a little after. Doesn't matter. It still inspires me to do what I want. I know that I will never give up on my dreams and goals, period. Even if they don't look the way that I want right now. I have no doubt in my mind because I'm so passionate. There's no doubt. Am I scared sometimes? Heck yeah. I'm like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? Especially when you say it out loud, you're like, oh my gosh, like people are going to hold me accountable to this.
Yeah.
Right? But am I scared? Yeah, of course I'm scared. But do I have any doubt? No. I have no doubt in my mind that I will create what I want to create because I say so.
I think that's very key. Not having any doubt is pretty important, because if you start to doubt yourself, now you start making decisions like you doubt yourself, and that can be very detrimental to the goals that you're working towards.
And I used to doubt myself. I want to be completely transparent about that. I used to, right? And that's why I'm so grateful to this experience and this program that I just went through, because we doubt ourselves and sometimes we don't even realize why we're doubting ourselves. So realizing why I even had the limiting beliefs that I had to begin with was key for me. So I feel like, I guess the second tip I would give people is work on the self-development aspect of you. So, you're like, well, Tanisha, I don't have enough money to necessarily go through a program right now. Okay. But there are podcasts and YouTube channels and books you can read in the meantime, right? That will help you get started on that journey until you become powerful enough and say, I'll source the money to, go through this, and whatever the case may be, I will figure it out. But there's so many different things out there that'll help you. You just have to want to do it and choose and say, I'm going to get it done.
Right? I absolutely agree. That's absolutely wonderful. So before we have to let you go and everything like that, what is your number one youthful tip, if you will? So if you're talking to the youth, you're telling them, XYZ to be better in self-development. What is XYZ? What do you tell them to be better in self-development?
To understand how powerful you are. Like, understand that there is the most abundant amount of power inside of you, period. And you can do anything that you want to do regardless of your age, period. You are a powerful being.
We are powerful. Right? I like that.
Period.
We are powerful.
You are powerful. I don't think we speak that enough into our kids, right? You are powerful. How many times do we ever look at our children and say that? Like, you're powerful, right?
I don't think ever.
How often? You're powerful. I speak that into my son every day. I'm like, you're powerful. And somebody's like, Mommy, I can't. I'm like, you can do anything you want. Go keep trying, because you're powerful. And then always keep them in a state of gratitude. Like I do this with my son all the time. We say prayers every night, but it's not like anything he's reciting. It's really just him saying, thank you, Jesus, for, right? Because I want him to go to bed with gratitude in his heart. So thank you, Jesus, for mommy, daddy, his friends, his godparents, my mom, whoever. And then I always make him end with, thank you, Jesus, for me.
Wow. That's some wonderful affirmations.
Yeah. Because he is powerful. And he gets to understand that. Because when you sit in that and you're like, I can stand in my own power, I can create anything. But we have to give them that belief. We get to do that. We get to make sure our children understand how powerful they are.
I absolutely agree. So before we officially head out and everything, give us your social, give us like your LinkedIn. Where can we follow you at? Where can we find you at? And then let's give another shout out for the fundraiser, and we'll have you on your way.
Thank you. So for the fundraiser, it's the legacy planners, and I will post the Venmo and the Zelle link below. On Instagram, you can follow me at a little underscore TLC. I'll post that as well. On Facebook, it's Tanisha Celeste, and on LinkedIn, same thing. My name, Tanisha Celeste. So please, follow me, reach out to me. I'd love to contact, all of you guys and be in a relationship with all of you. And yeah, I'd love to see how I can help your communities and help impact in a positive way. Let me know.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
Hey, Ramblers, that's it. Podcast is over. Don't leave yet, though. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, and follow us on YouTube at OffSource HQ. We'll see you next time.